What is one lesson that still guides your decisions today?
One thing that I've learned is you have to take risks. You have to be brave. You have to get outside your comfort zone. You have to go on an adventure.
What is the biggest gap in today's data tools landscape, and what would you build in order to fix that?
I would be building a bridge between what is known as the world of knowledge management and data management. Everything that we've been doing is to make BI better.
In this edition of the Executive Outlook, we are joined by Malcolm, Chief Data Officer at Prophecy and a recognized expert in MDM and data governance. With over 25 years of experience helping global organizations make the most of their data, Malcolm shares actionable insights on turning data into a strategic asset. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I am really, really good.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to know that how did you get started in data?
Started my career in product management and working my way up. I eventually became a chief product officer for a software company that was doing project management software. And I love that job. I love building teams. I love building products. I love solving complex problems. And life took an interesting turn. I found myself making a transition into becoming an independent consultant from being a chief product officer. I went to work for this one reasonably large company because they hired me to answer the question of how many customers do we have? And I'm thinking, man, this is going to be easy. This is going to be the simplest thing I've ever done. It'll be a layup. I'll get paid really well. I won't have to work that hard. I'll just go create some boards, some BI insights, and we'll be done. And I was completely wrong. It turns out that was my deep dive into the world of master data management. I fell headlong into this year-long plus project to try to understand how many customers that this company had. And that's how my gateway into data and analytics. It turns out that this paradox of what appears to be very easy, but is actually quite difficult, is a repeating theme in data and analytics. And it turns out I actually really like that. So that was kind of how I fell into the data and analytics world. And I've been here ever since, and I'm loving every minute of it.
This is the beauty of technology, that you are solving a very simple problem, but the back work which you do has a lot of efforts, right? And if we discuss this scenario in the world of data, that's a mess. But we are trying to solve the business question. So you have worked with different data teams. So can you tell me that how the leaders are overcoming the belief of limiting data? That, like, for example, there are some limited beliefs in the data teams, right? So how leaders can overcome that?
That's something I discussed in my recent book, The Data Hero Playbook. And I talked about something that I discovered when I was an analyst at Gartner. So when you are an analyst, most of your day is spent talking to CDOs and CIOs about their big challenges. And I did that for 3 years. And that's all I did all day, every day for 3 years, is talk to CDOs, VPs of data and analytics, about what some of their biggest challenges are. And there were challenges related to technologies, related to processes, that related to recruiting great teams and building great teams. And those were common themes. But what I heard over and over again in those conversations was something else. And what I heard was this repeating theme of what I call in my book of a very limiting mindset, which is a perspective, a view, a belief that limits your ability to succeed. I'll give you a few examples. When I was talking to CDOs, I would hear things like, the business doesn't care about data quality. The business doesn't care about data governance. I would hear this saying all the time, well, you can lead a horse to water, but the business just doesn't care. We're not a data-driven organization, right? We don't have a data culture. We don't care about data quality. And I kept hearing these things, and they were all very limiting. They were all framed in the negative. They were all these perspectives about all the things that everybody else outside the data organization needed to do differently. Basically, it was data people complaining. Right. And I understand our jobs are hard. I complain often, a lot, but I heard it over. And what I was able to learn after 3 years is that this mindset that takes a very limiting view of our customers and our data and our roles is the biggest barrier to data leaders' success. The things that are holding us back the most are these very limiting mindsets that sees things in very constraining ways and in very deterministic ways that tend to reinforce the status quo. When we think that nothing is fixable, when we think that everything is garbage, when we think that all the data quality sucks, these perspectives tend to reinforce the status quo. Thinking we can do this, we've got this, instead of thinking we're valuable, we're important, we matter. What we find ourselves saying instead is well, nobody cares about data and we've got a really hard job and nobody appreciates how hard our job is. And those perspectives just tend to reinforce the status quo. And that's something that I'm working to try to combat in my book and all the perspectives I share online.
Yeah. Since you are sharing about your book, I have read through it that the phrase you have challenged is garbage in and garbage out. Why is that mindset harmful?
It's a great question. Imagine if you're a chief data officer and you're in a boardroom and you're sitting across the table from a CEO or maybe a CIO. You could work for a CIO, but you produce a report for the group and somebody complains about the report. They say, why does this customer appear 2 times or 3 times? Why does this data is not consistent with this data? Why is there something not right with this report? Imagine you're the CDO and you said, well, garbage in, garbage out. When we say these things, we entirely disempower ourselves. Imagine you've spent millions on data and analytics, and what you hear is somebody telling you that the person that you've hired to make that data correct, to make the data accurate, is powerless. And all of those systems don't matter. All the investments don't matter. I know you would be frustrated. So that's the C-level view. But when we think about the impacts that this has on people like you and me and everybody else who are doing analytics or building dashboards or maybe doing data quality, maybe you're a data steward, what is known as a very deterministic phrase. It's one or the other. But we know that data is not that binary. We know that data quality exists on a spectrum. What might be good for marketing may not be good for finance or vice versa. The idea of quality is never binary. It's never yes or no. Quality exists on a spectrum. So the idea saying that it is either one thing or another thing is a drastic reduction. It's very simplistic. It's probably not accurate. And it creates what I believe is a toxic relation, helps create more of a toxic relationships between the producers and the consumers of data. Because when people who are building the reports or doing the stewardship or doing the data quality say, I can't help you, I'm powerless. Well, what does that say to our customers, right? And beyond that, I know for a fact that people in marketing, people in sales, people in finance care deeply. They care about our company. They care about doing things the right way. They care about selling more, about making great products, about making accurate financial reports. They care about all those things. And maybe data, it may be a challenge. It may be inaccurate. It may be consistent, but nobody is out there trying to make our jobs harder. I think it's a very toxic phrase. It's a very simplistic phrase. It doesn't acknowledge the nuances that exist within data quality. And ultimately, I find it a very disempowering phrase that we should probably abandon.
And I think we can also relate this with the AI, that if your data is not right, if your data is garbage, you will get the output as a garbage, right? So this is applicable for all the people who are investing a lot in AI. Simplifying your process until the data quality will not be there, we will not get the right results through the AI also. Mhm.
The internet is not necessarily known as a amazing example of high quality data. The internet is full of inaccurate data. It will make your head spin. Yet somehow these generative AI solutions can be highly effective. They're not 100% effective. They're not even 90% effective. We know they hallucinate. We know they got some problems. However, they can still be very valuable. I built my own GPT last night. I built a digital, and we know it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be 100%. It may not even be 90%, but it's still going to be better than zero, and it's still going to drive value for us. So this idea of do your foundations, get data quality right, do all those things, do data governance, or AI will suck, is a deterministic binary. You can still have some low quality data and still produce AI that is reasonably valuable, maybe even incredibly valuable. So yes, data quality matters. Data governance matters. All those things are important, but we really need to get out of this world of trying to tell everybody, if you don't do those things, your AI is going to suck, because our business customers don't believe it, because they've been using these solutions for 3 years now. driving great value, adding automation into business processes, helping software engineers write more code, helping marketers write more copy, helping HR people review more resumes. Our business customers are using these solutions. And we're in the data team saying, yes, we got
What?
to get our foundations right.
Yeah, I got it. But what if, suppose someone query on the GPT and the AI that can you tell me the report numbers for the last quarter and it is incorrect? We are going to lose trust on the AI, right?
Yep.
This is also very crucial to use the AI on the right data,
You're
right?
exactly right. Our businesses are built in essence on trust. We need our customers to trust us. And if we're using an LLM to try to execute a SQL query, it's going to be wrong. LLMs suck at SQL, right? And LLMs really struggle with producing meaningful insights on any highly structured data, right? Whether it's sitting in SQL, whether it's anything else. If it's highly structured, LLMs are going to struggle with that. So you're absolutely right on that. But at the same time, we need to be working with our customers. We need to create and manage realistic expectations. Our customers need to know what's an appropriate AI use case and what is not an appropriate AI use case. If you're trying to use an LLM to basically build and replace a dashboard, where in that dashboard you expect high quality data, maybe you're using it for revenue recognition, maybe you're using it for your financial reporting, bad AI use case. It's not the right one.
I have been to certain conferences, and many vendors have come up with this concept of generative BI, right? Still, it will make a lot of difference. So, I completely agree that we need to define the use cases for the AI, that this is the right use case, this is not the right use case, and then we will be able to achieve. Yeah, perfect. All right. Ask from you that what motivated you to write the book?
I had spent this amazing time as an analyst. Gartner's an amazing company, helping solving really difficult problems for their customers. Gartner helped kind of sharpen them. But I had these amazing insights through these amazing conversations that I was having all day, every day. And I was able to determine that we can be doing things differently. And my view in the Data Hero playbook is very different. It's very provocative. I haven't heard anybody say that data literacy is a bad idea. And I'm saying that data literacy, as most companies actually execute it, is a bad idea. The fundamentals of data literacy is that companies are not getting value from data and analytics because users of data lack skill. That's basically blaming users for, in essence, what is a data problem. So I needed to write the book because I had developed these perspectives that I don't hear anybody else sharing. So it was about a year to write the whole book from beginning to end, but I'm very grateful and very thankful that I was able to do it.
Okay. So, what is one lesson that still guides your decisions today?
So many. One thing that I've learned is you have to take risks. You have to be brave. You have to get outside your comfort zone. You have to go on an adventure. I think this is just for me. It's not for everybody, but this is something that I've learned in my life, that the only way, at least for me, this may not be for everybody, but whatever success I've had and whatever great things that I've built have all come through some form of discomfort, and have all come by getting outside of my comfort zone and by trying something different, by being bold, by being brave. I tell this story in my book. The first way that I did this is I left my country. So I'm not from the United States. I'm originally from Canada. And I
Mhm.
left my country and I left my family and I left my friends and I went to somewhere completely different and completely new. I guess would be from where I am in Florida to where I'm from in Canada, a long way. And I'm better for it. And it stressed me and it tested me. And there was a period in my career where I took a very, very conservative approach, where I didn't take
Mhm.
any risks, where I was fearful of losing my job. And it was because I was afraid of getting kicked out of the country. I was an immigrant. I was working on a visa. And I was very concerned that if I lost my visa or I lost my job, I'd be kicked out of the United States and I'd have to go home. And I didn't want that. So there was a period in my career when I was very conservative and managing basically through fear. And it was a very difficult time in my career. And it was I was learning a lot. I was working at a great company, but it was a very difficult time. And the minute I stopped managing through a perspective of fear, the minute I stopped being afraid of losing things and instead took the perspective of adventure, the perspective of trying new things, getting out of my comfort zone, trying different jobs, not being afraid of losing, but focusing on winning and getting rid of this fear of losing, that's when everything opened up. That's when everything changed for me. And that's my kind of like my key advice. Don't be afraid. Take some risks. Be bold. If you manage your career through the perspective of you're afraid to lose, you will never win.
Absolutely. And I always think through one thing. If there is an opportunity, you have to grab that opportunity, right? You don't have to think through it multiple times. Just go for it.
That's I'm an analyst, right? I like to analyze. That is kind of the core of who I am. And I like to do the pros and I like to do the cons and I like to do the deep analysis. But you're right. It's, at some point you need to believe in yourself and believe in your skills and believe maybe you're making the choice. And but there's if you take a what I call a growth mindset, right, which is a big part of what I'm focusing on in the book, even when you fail, right? Even when you may not make all that money, or maybe even when you don't get that big promotion, or maybe something happens with a relationship and it doesn't matter. When you take a growth mindset, all of those things are, instead of them being failures, they are opportunities to learn, right? And that's the core difference if somebody embraces a growth mindset, which is, okay, there's risk here and I may not succeed, but even if I don't, it's still going to be positive for me because I will learn and I will develop. And then the next time that I do this, I won't fail because I'll have learned all of those lessons. That's the key difference as somebody who has a growth mindset, is that they don't see failure as proof that you're not capable or that you shouldn't have even tried in the first place. Somebody with a growth mindset will see that as an opportunity to learn, as still a net positive. That's the perspective that I think we need more of in the data and analytics space, including other things like more of a customer focus and more of a focus on products. There's a lot of things that we could be doing differently. But the one thing that I would invite data people to be more mindful of and to embrace is this idea of a growth mindset. And yeah, grab the opportunity because good things will happen.
Okay. So, right now, what is the biggest gap in today's data tools landscape? And what would you build in order to fix that?
All right. Yeah. If I was going to do a startup and if I had a sitting behind me, a big bag of millions of rupee, what would I be building? I would be building a bridge between what is known as the world of knowledge management and data management. Another way to think about this is a bridge between the worlds of unstructured data and
Mhm.
structured data. Everything that we have been doing for 30 years in data and analytics is very structured. Everything that we've been doing is to make BI better, is to make classic reporting better. Those reports run on rows and columns. They run on highly structured data. But everything that we've been doing is for this one type of data with one specific type of output. That's the world of Gen AI. This is the world of LLMs. And generative AI are built on, optimized by text. They want to digest, the fuel for generative AI solutions is unstructured data, video, text, semi-structured data, stuff sitting in XML and JSON, all of that, semi-structured and structured, is largely outside of the governance processes of most data and analytics functions. So when we say, getting back to our previous conversation, when we say about, well, focus on the foundations, most of the foundations don't even look at that unstructured data. That whole is the world of things like content management systems that generally sit in marketing organizations. It's the world of knowledge management and people who are helping build and optimize search engines, right? For internal content or external content or even Google. But is the world of ontologies, is the world of hierarchies. It's the world of classifying large bodies of unstructured data. It's very much like what a librarian used to do hundreds of years ago. That world is completely separate from our BI world, from our classic data and analytics world. How do we bring them together? Some of the things that we're starting to do and in early days are things like knowledge graphs. Knowledge graphs are one way that you could start to connect data sitting in rows and columns with unstructured data, how you could start to take a more holistic view of classifying and cataloging and governing that data, how you could start to apply traditional governance processes to highly unstructured data. But if I had a lot of money today, I would be building a startup that was focused on solving that problem.
Right now, a lot of tools like Fireflies, Note Taker, so they record the conversation and give you the note at the end, next steps. And we don't know if that is, sometimes it completely give us the wrong next steps, no, wrong conversation, wrong objection handlings, right? So right now we don't have anything to measure the quality of that. We have to go through the transcribe, understand the context, and then create and edit that. So that is the world you are talking about. That
This is the part of the conversation. If your data is not good, your AI is not going to be. This frustrates me a bit because so much of this data, 80 to 90% unstructured data, sitting in SharePoint servers, sitting in Word docs on desktops around the organization. That's the data that Gen AI wants and needs, what's known as fine tuning. I've been building my own GPT, doing some of my own fine tuning of my GPT and back and forth. But that looks so different than what we've been doing historically. And the thing that frustrates me is that when you can go to these events, you can go to these conferences and you talk to people about, okay, I'm ready. Sign me up. I want to focus on foundations to make my AI better. What are they going to tell you? Rows and columns. The same stuff we've been doing for 30 years, and it will not move the needle for any of those Gen AI use cases.
believe me, one of the vendor I saw in one of the conferences, and their tool was to convert the unstructured data into structured data. And we were having the conversation behind it. We need to do that. Do we need to convert the unstructured data into structured data? That was all altogether a different conversation then.
It's I've been asking that question for about a year, and I don't know the answer. I think I have some ideas, but it seems slightly counterintuitive to take all of that unstructured data and to structure it. But I don't think that's necessarily always the case. It depends on the data. Some of that data, I think we will want to structure. I think we will want to tokenize that data. And I think we will want to try to run traditional data governance and data quality processes against some of that data. Certainly not
Yes.
all of it. But if there's data out there, patient data, for example, in healthcare, that's a great example of, yeah, we're probably going to want to tokenize all of that. And we're probably going to want to run, like, because there's going to be information there related to treatment plans, related to drugs that have been recommended by a doctor when they were transcribing notes. So some of that unstructured data, we will, I think, want to try to structure. We'll want to try to graph it. We'll want to try to vectorize it, and we'll do that so we can apply BI type data quality and data governance rules to it. There's a whole other bunch of that data we don't need to do that, and I think it will be okay to use LLMs to run data quality processes on it, to assess data quality, to assess data accuracy, knowing they will probably be wrong a decent chunk of the time. So how we make that determine, that's another area where I'd be investing in technology. What is the cutoff? What unstructured data do we want to bring into the structured data world, right? So that we can run traditional governance policies to it. What data do we not? And how do we determine? Like, I think there's a paradox here in that the reason why you would want to structure that data is to improve the output of governance and quality processes so it actually increases the accuracy of LLMs. However, the paradox is that I think to do it at scale, you're going to need to use an LLM to do it. Do we have to structure all this data? No, but how do we know what data to structure or leave unstructured? I don't know the answer to that question yet.
Yeah. It also depends on the use case and how do we want to utilize it. Do we do we need to structure it? Then yes. If we don't need, we need different. We want to have a different use case. That okay, understanding the conversation, understanding how it is. Then no. So I think it is more of a business side of it, business use case, how we want to deal with that.
I think you're right. And I think that will be an important determination as to what do we structure and what do we leave unstructured. However, this goes beyond just a report, right? This, to your point, it gets to the use case, meaning how will these insights be used? Knowing that, meaning what business process will consume them? What data science model will consume them? What user will consume them in what context for what business purpose? Knowing those things, today we guess. Like we produce a sales report, we're assuming that salespeople are using that to determine where they should focus their efforts, right? We basically we're able to infer reasonably well how that data will be used. I think in the future we need to build more and better relationships with our consumers. We need systems that are able to understand beyond the dashboard, well beyond the dashboard, how that data is actually consumed in a downstream process or a downstream system.
All right, so I think that is all the questions I wanted to ask it from you. And thank you so much for sharing the knowledge and experience on leadership, governance, MDM, and your guidance, how you are turning the data and how you are creating the business impact. Thank you so much, and it's a privilege having you on the executive.
Thank you. It's been my honor. You asked some great questions. I hope we can do it again sometime in the future. Thank you.